Your yarn substitutions aren't working because you know nothing about spinning yarn. Not everyone in the fiber arts has to be a hand spinner. However, if you are a crocheter, a weaver, a knitter who has always struggled with yarn substitution and you can't quite figure out why because you often match up the fiber content of the yarns that you're using, the reason is because you don't know anything about how yarn is spun. The way that yarn is spun, whether it is on a small scale like a hand spinner or a larger scale like a commercial mill, will heavily affect how that yarn drapes and falls in your final product. In fact, it gets even more complicated than that when you realize that the way that the fiber is prepared before it is spun also heavily impacts that finished yarn. The words we use to describe this phenomena is often worsted and woolen yarns, okay? Worsted and woolen are a spectrum, so you can modify a lot of different variables within to get a slightly worsted and a slightly woolen yarn. Essentially, the gist of it is that worsted yarns are going to be very tight, very drapey, a little shiny, going to be a very dense yarn that's not going to pill easily, whereas woolen yarns are going to be light and fluffy. Personally, these are the types of yarns that I love to use for sweaters or cable projects. Again, they're going to have a lot of air in them, a lot of floof. It's going to have a little bit more stiffness to the whole fabric because of that air, and these yarns are also going to be warmer than worsted style yarns. Knowing how your mill prepared your fiber is going to make it a lot easier for you to find similar yarns. There are actually some yarn companies that are already including this information on their yarn label. Next time you get your hands on a more recent skein of Brooklyn tweed, take a look because it'll probably say whether it's woolen or worsted spun. And now that you know about the different types of yarns, tell me, do you use more woolen or more worsted yarn in your stash?